Two Interact's performance management belongs to its talent management suite. It is integrated with training, succession planning, career planning, and competency management, and many other modules. It is highly configurable and it can be set up to provide for the specific requirements of a client. Performance management allows you to involve as many employees as you require. These employees are called actors, who can play various roles in the system and can be assigned to specific employees or jobs or client engagements for which they will be responsible to do the performance planning and appraisals. You can even define a sophisticated performance cycle schedule, or you can keep it very simple and start with a basic plan, which is approved and finally appraised by the supervisor. Let's take a look at such a plan. Everything will happen through self-service. Your employees, your supervisors, counselors, and other persons involved in the performance planning process will be able to do everything using self-service. So, as a result, each employee will have their own performance plan that they can access. But they can also have performance plan tasks which relate to other employees for which they are responsible. The same thing occurs when you are looking at appraisals, where the employee can handle their own appraisals or manage other people's appraisals. There is one more type of performance planning which has to do with specific projects of clients for which an employee is responsible. In each case, you can have separate plans which will provide for specific goals that will be unique to the clients. Those are called client engagement plans. So the first step in the performance planning process is for the employee and the supervisor to agree on their performance plan. Now, a performance plan can consist of multiple dimensions. In this case, I have it set up to contain 3 dimensions: performance goals, competencies, and internal elements. Performance goals are measurable goals which are specific so that the employee can be properly appraised on them. In my case, I have set it up in 3 groups. I have company goals, department goals, and personal goals. And for each group, I have individual goals defined. I can also define the benchmark that we will use to measure these goals. And I will have more details on each goal because it is very important that everybody understands the goal in the same manner. So during the initial planning process, supervisors and employees will work together to come out with a final agreed plan, and employees will have the ability to add their own goals. Here, I am editing this particular goal, and I am adding in more details on the fly. I can pick the date by when this goal needs to be achieved, and we can add more information if we need to. This is a goal that's been added that's not standard, but instead a specific item that can be entered by the employee or by the supervisor depending on how they divide their roles. Apart from goals, you also have your competency evaluations, where you will get the list of competencies and the level of proficiency or competency level that is expected. In each case, you will have a description of the competency, and you will get details about which training is available to develop this competency, and by when we need to see that person exhibiting that competency. Finally, I have a third dimension for measuring employees, which we call the internal elements, which are really any other items that you define which would not typically be grouped as goals or competencies. And for each one of those internal elements, you can have a title, a description, and a bit more detail including due dates and information on how to develop this skill. So we are in the first phase, where the plan is being created by both the employee and the supervisor. If everything is finished, then this plan can be posted. We can see that Margaret has finished her part of the planning phase. Depending on the workflow that you set up in your performance management, her boss, Patty, would also be able to modify goals and objectives and add comments whenever need be or add a new goal on the fly. So now Patty can approve this plan or reject it. And once it's approved, then the appraisal process can start. In the appraisal form, the supervisor can put in details on the actual achievement, the date by when it was achieved, the score, and finally a comment on each individual goal. The same thing goes for competencies and internal elements, which need to be appraised. The employee can also do her part in the self-evaluation. Now, on top of the regular performance plans, each employee can have a number of client engagement plans, which will be specific goals that relate to specific clients or projects. And that will allow you to monitor many different things in addition to the regular performance of the employee, if the employee is involved with clients or projects. Now let's wrap this up by looking at some of the setup in the performance management. You'll notice that there are many different methods that we can use. We can decide which dimensions will be included in the performance plan, what weight they would carry, and whether or not they would have a critical impact on the final score. You can define the frequency of the appraisals. You can define yourself the overall rating mechanisms with a scoring from 1 to 5, or 1 to 100, or any other scoring. If you have a sophisticated performance cycle schedule in your setup, then you will be able to specify who needs to be notified when, through email, and how many days in advance you would like to email this particular person. What text would you like to send them with which attachment in order to ensure that they know when to proceed with a standard appraisal and performance plan? One final thing to point out is that your specific performance plans, once they have been created online and everything is up to date, can then be produced in any report. There are many different reports. Here's one, for example. This would be based on the layout that you require. It will list all the goals and competencies that this person will be evaluated on, and the same report, of course, can be exported to PDF or to any other format that you need. Here's an example of the PDF that was generated, which has all the information that was provided by employees and supervisors in the system. And of course, this report is customizable. The main thing to remember about our performance management is that everything is done through self-service. Any number of people can be involved, and you can manage this process entirely electronically. And it's up to you whether you want to include goals or competencies or any other internal elements that you use to track people's performance.